Is there audio? Anyone? Still no audio. Oh, okay. So here's the fun thing. I open the menu and it says headset microphone. It's got this code number. It's the same one. I set it to a different mic and set it back to the first one. It doesn't fix it. So I do that twice more and it fixes it. The entire time it has been set to this microphone, it's just randomly not picking up the mic until I do that 3 or 4 times. So I apologize, but hey, thanks for sticking it out, and now we'll go ahead and keep going. Um, and I actually checked this as usual. I don't know why it's doing this every single time. But anyway, so welcome to the stream. I hope you enjoyed the first 15 minutes of mime that was going on here. So today we are doing, I am doing wig ventilating, which is a really not terribly exciting thing to watch. So while we're doing wig ventilating, I'm going to let you ask me questions, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I am going to start off talking about wig ventilating, actually, but that'll take me like 5 minutes, and then I'm just going to be sitting here tying knots in hair, so that's not really thrilling. So you can be thinking of your questions, and I'm going to get started with this wig. Now, I do need to caution you, this is not a very nice wig. This is a very low budget lace top wig. A normal, if you're buying a good quality full lace top wig, it's going to cost you somewhere between $80 and $300. I think this wig was like maybe. It's not a great quality wig, but it does have a lace top, so I'm going to be working on it and ventilating through the top. So in a previous stream, I talked a little bit about the difference between different types of wigs, wig construction, and there are basically two different types of wigs. There are wigs that are made out of weft, which is strips of hair sewn together that are then sewn onto an elastic base, and there are wigs that are made of wig lace, which is a fine mesh that the individual strands of hair are tied to rather than being sewn in a strip. This one is half and half. So the front part of it, let me rotate this so you can see. If you can see, the canvas is showing through the wig lace at the top. The top part of this wig right here is made of lace, which means each individual strand of hair is tied to the lace. But the back part of the wig, because again, not a very expensive wig, this part back here is all made of weft, and you can kind of see there are strips of hair sewn down. So the front part of the wig is handcrafted, and the back part of the wig is machine made, basically. And this wig is getting very tangly, so I'm going to pull out one of my secret weapons of wig styling, the static guard. The air is dry. I have a space heater running because my house is really cold, which is another reason I'm in this room today, because this room's actually heated, unlike my sewing room upstairs. And I'm going to static guard the front of this wig a little bit by spraying it on a brush and then brushing it through so it doesn't do these flyaway things that it keeps trying to do. So this is Laura's wig, actually. I do all the wig styling because I have eyeballs and Laura doesn't. Well, Laura has one eyeball. The other eyeball is decorative. But that means that I do all of the small detail work like wig ventilating. Is it possible to do a super short wig like buzz cut or particularly short pixie cut? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I have a wig that every time I wear it, people are convinced I've shaved my head. It's the fiber in it is probably about an inch long, the actual fiber, but it's very densely. It is a wefted wig. It's not a lace wig, but it's very densely wefted, so the inch long fiber can overlap all the other fibers. And even though I have a lot of hair, I have about 3 feet of hair, or slightly more now because I'm due for a haircut. And if I braid my hair around my head and get it really flat, and then I put the super short wig on, people think I have really short hair, and then it really confuses them when they see me later and I have long hair. So yes, it is absolutely possible, but the construction of the wig is going to determine how convincing that is, because if you do have a super short wig, you can't skimp on the wefting or the ventilating. You have to have a lot of fiber to cover that up, otherwise people will be able to see your head between the layers of weft. Whereas if you have a longer wig, you can get away with having a little more space between the wefts because the hair will overlap. So once I've got this detangled from the wig clamp, the first thing I'm going to do is try to isolate the hair that is on the lace part of the wig from the hair that is in the weft part of the wig. Because there's only a lace top, it doesn't go back very far. So I'm just going to try to find where that is. Oh wow, it really doesn't go back very far. I'm using this chopstick to lift up the hair that's on the lace, and I'm just going to section all of that out so it comes to the front. So everything forward of this seam is on the lace, and everything behind this seam is weft. And what I'm going to be doing is putting streaks of colored fiber in the top of this wig so that it looks like the hair has stripes. But that is only going to be on the lace for right now. And what I'm actually going to do to cheat, because my extension fiber that I'm putting in is not actually long enough to properly ventilate in full length, because when you add fiber to the lace, your fiber has to be twice the length of the total hair in the wig, because you're basically tying a knot in the middle of it so the two ends hang down. So since my fiber is a little bit too short for this long wig, what I'm going to do is put some ventilated fiber at the top, and then I'm going to cheat and sew some colored weft of the same color underneath it. So it'll just look like it's all one section. Oh, Laura's sharing a picture of my short wig. I'm assuming that's a Drake picture or a Hawkeye picture. I use the same wig for Nathan Drake and Hawkeye because they have similar hairstyles. One of my cousins got super mad because I wore that wig to a family Halloween party. And he was convinced I'd cut my hair off. And he's very traditional, and he's like, I can't believe you'd cut off all that long, pretty hair. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's still in my head. Okay, so I now have all of the lace fiber separated out. So if you can see, I'm going to rotate this a little bit. Here is the seam where the weft starts in. So this front part right here is all on lace. Everything from here back is strips of weft sewn in. So I'm going to tie this part back so I don't have to deal with it while I'm trying to ventilate the front part. Assuming, did I actually bring any hair ties in here? No, I didn't. Figures. Oh well, I'll use this. That should be enough to keep it from getting tangled at least. Okay. So the next step is I need to part this wig where the stripes need to go, which is just over the left eye. My wig head doesn't have eyes, but we're going to pretend. That's going to be right about here. Okay, so now I have a part. Oh, are our Hawkeye photos down? You know, I noticed I was doing some updates on our website, and I noticed a few other images missing. I think something may have happened to our images that we need to check on. If this weren't, you know, pandemic, when we weren't actually doing costumes on a regular basis and updating the site more regularly, we might have found out about that problem earlier. But oddly enough, I haven't had to add very much stuff to our website this year because there's a pandemic going on and all the cons got canceled. Or at least all moved online. But online cons call for less cosplay because it's mostly, when we're doing panels for online cons, we're usually just talking heads. Although this year, you know, I'm doing online cons this year and I may just dress up for them because, darn it, I miss cosplay. I'm making all these cool things and I have no place to wear them. Okay, I think we're getting to the right spot with the part. There's just a few strands that need straightened out. There we go. so now I've got a part in the lace, in the hair in the lace rather. I'm going to flatten all this hair down over to the side, and then I'm going to try to heat set it, because this wig doesn't actually want to part here. Despite being a lace top wig, it's obviously been set with a center part, so we're going to try to fix that. I'm going to let that cool down. So wig fiber is basically made of plastic. I mean, not basically, it is literally made of plastic, unless it's a human hair wig. And you can heat set it just like you can heat set real hair. However, you do have to know what temperature your plastic can tolerate, because if you use a really hot styling tool on a low temperature plastic, it will melt your wig. So heat resistant wigs are really common now. They didn't used to be. Wigs used to have a really low melting temperature, but if you buy a nicer wig nowadays, you can get heat resistant fiber that'll actually be good up to like 300 or 400 degrees. This wig is probably not that nice because it was cheap, but it is somewhat heat resistant, so I could actually heat set it just now. So now, this used to be parted in the middle, and now I've parted it off to the side. So what I'm going to do next is add some red fiber. I've got my extensions over here, and I'm going to make a stripe going either way out of the middle part. And to do that, I'm going to use a ventilating needle, which looks like this. This is not going to show up on the camera, so I'm not going to hold it up close, but the ventilating needle has a hook in it. It's shaped like this, and that end of the hook right here, a little barb, and so it'll catch this one. The one I'm using right now is probably a 2 to 3 strand barb. I actually have a whole different set of needles that do different numbers of strands of hair. And that's what you use to tie the knots in the hair through the lace. So here are my extensions. Technically this is weft, but I'm going to cut it off the weft and make it into extensions. So these are really long strips of hair sewn to a seam that would normally be sewn into a wig. I'm detangling them slightly. Oh, and I'm gonna have to static guard these too, because wow, this is this is very staticky. And shedding. All wigs shed to a certain degree. You know what? I'm just going to spray these directly. I don't normally do that, but this is a mess. At least it's only static guard. It's not hairspray. It's not going to stick in my carpet and be horrible. Phew, it does smell bad though. Whew. All right. So I'm using a very soft, wide tooth brush just to straighten these out. If there are any tangles, you don't want to use a brush because a brush will just rip the hair out faster, and wigs don't regrow hair like normal hair. So if you are not specifically straightening it out like that, where did my wide tooth comb go? Here. You can use something that is a wider tooth comb. Shower combs work really, really well for detangling wig fiber. You don't want to use something that's fine-toothed or designed to strip hair out because obviously your wig will get really thin that way. Okay. And this is all twist tied together. So I'm going to untwist tie it and then cut off a little section and start from that for the ventilating. And then we can do some Q&A while that's happening. Haha, the twist ties are tangled into the wig fiber. Lovely. You can tell this is not staged, because if I had done all this set up in advance, it wouldn't be like this. To be fair, these wig extensions did get shipped halfway across the country, and things happen in the post. Just learned something. Oh, always use water for static. Yeah, if I'm destaticking a wig, usually I'll just spray the comb or the hairbrush and comb it through, and that's enough to get rid of the static. These extensions, though, are really, really staticky, so I figured I would just spray them directly. Looking at pictures of ventilating hooks, what's the difference between the ones that have the little latches and the ones that just have the hooks? Um, I believe that the ones with the latches are used more for different kinds of construction. I've never actually used the kind with the latches. I know they exist, but the ones I've used are always just the hook kind. So I think for hand tying individual strands, it's probably the ones with the little hooks. The latches I think are probably more for maybe weaves. I'm not an expert in that though. If anybody in the chat is an expert in that, please pop in and say something. Um, wow, this is messy. Okay, there we go. All right, so here, this is weft. Weft is the strip of hair all sewn together, and that's what the back half of this wig is made out of, strips of this weft sewn back and forth across an elastic cap. What I am going to do is cut a bunch of the hair off of this weft. If I can separate it out. My goodness, this is tangly. Let go. Once I get this detached, there we go. I'm going to cut some of the length of the fiber off of this weft and use it for ventilating. Where did my scissors go? Right there. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is just trim that section of weft so it's separate. Okay. Now all the extension, the rest of this weft is going away somewhere so I don't have to deal with it. Because that's just going to continue tangling and being awful. All right, and speaking of being awful, so some fibers are really nice and don't tangle, and they're slick enough that they don't catch on themselves. This fiber is not one of the nice ones that doesn't tangle. This is Arta Classic, and the Arta Classic is way more tangly than the Arta Silky. As the name suggests, Silky is much more slippery and can detangle easier. But the Arta Classic is really, really sticky. Ones with elastics to make a less secure knot, or simply to pull a loop of hair through an opening as opposed to tying a knot. Thank you. Now I've learned something. Yeah, I had never used them because these are the ones I learned on. Okay. Now, I have a trash can, and the trash can is going in my lap when I cut this because wig fiber, much like faux fur, likes to get everywhere and little bits of it are horrible. So we're going to cut this over the trash so that we do not have horrible bits of wig fiber going everywhere. And I'm just snipping right below the seam to free the hair from the seam of the weft. And then I will have a long section of loose wig fiber that is not attached to anything at all, which is what we need to tie knots in it. Because the weft cannot tie onto the lace. Okay, there we go. So I now have a approximately 3-foot long strip of loose wig fiber, which I'm going to fold in half, like so. So I'm now holding it in the middle. And I'm going to hold it so there's a little bit of a loop there. And this gives me something to catch my hook onto. And how far back is this? I've got my references on my second screen here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook the little barbed end of this through a bit of the wig lace, pick up a couple of strands of hair and pull it through, and then use the hook to twist it and pull the length of the hair strand all the way back through. And this is the boring, not very exciting part of this process because it's just, you're going to do this over and over and over and over and over. Some people are super fast at this because they have a lot of experience and they're very, very dexterous. I am not the fastest wig ventilator. I'm decent at it, but I'm not quick, so this is going to be a multi-session project to get all of this in here. And some of this is still being staticky and horrible. So if anybody has any random questions, now's a good time to throw them in the chat. This wig head needs to be about 2 inches shorter so I can see without straining my neck. Do they have to be cosplay questions, or can I cheat and say, tell us about Sparkles? No, you can cheat and tell us about Sparkles. I know this crowd. I know the dog is way more interesting than I am. um, so Sparkles is currently napping behind me here, back there, if you can see her. Sparkles is a female pit bull. She's mid-range adult, maybe four-ish. I don't actually know how old she is because she was picked as a stray and the shelter didn't know for sure. She is technically my foster dog, but we've all kind of resigned ourselves to knowing that she's not actually a foster dog. She's probably here permanently, but uh, technically she's still a foster dog because I haven't finalized anything with the shelter. But I have had Dobermans for many years, and about 3 years ago, this is actually related to this cosplay indirectly, but about 3 years ago, my 14-year-old Doberman Valencia passed away, and I was not ready to get another dog yet because I'd had Valencia for 14 years, and I was, it's hard to move on at that. But after a few months, the animal control from our city put out an emergency call for foster homes because they had so many animals that they were having to euthanize on intake because they were out of kennels, and they had a double stack of crates down every hallway of the shelter, and they were still out of places to put the animals, and they were like, guys, we can't take anymore, we have to do something, or we're just going to have to start killing animals, and we don't want to do that. So I at the time didn't have a dog because Valencia had died, and I'm like, look, I wasn't ready to adopt another dog, but I feel really bad not having a dog at my house and saying, oh, sorry, shelter dog, you have to die now because I wasn't willing to give you a home for 2 weeks. So I said, okay, I'll take a short-term foster. And just for a couple weeks, just until you get some space. And I've got a fenced yard, I've got facilities, I can keep a dog. And I had done some volunteering with the shelter before, so they knew my background, they knew I was a professional trainer, and they said, okay, go pick out any dog you want, we don't care what dog it is, just get a dog off the floor. So I walked onto the shelter floor, and I'm walking through, and it's Indianapolis, so like 99% of the dogs in there are pit bulls anyway. And I thought, okay, well, I have a lot of history with doing fear rehab and aggression rehab and things. Maybe I'll take a dog who's got some issues, and then I can work with them, and then they'll be more adoptable because they will have had some time out of the shelter and a little bit of training. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, I'll take a dog who's more rambunctious, or a dog who maybe is scared or something like that. And I walked past what I thought was an empty kennel. I thought, that's odd. There's a sign on the door with the dog's photo. And why is this kennel empty? So I lean over the side and look in, and the kennel is not empty, but in the far corner of the kennel, there is about this much blue brindle fur curled up in the tiniest little ball of shaking terror. And I looked at her and I'm like, oh, honey, you've got to get out of this. She was just so shut down. She was petrified. She didn't want to come to the door. She didn't want anybody touching her. She didn't want to look at another dog. She was just shaking, and she'd been there for days, and she was still like that. So I'm like, well, this is the dog I'm taking because she's never going to get adopted. Nobody's going to look at this dog because she doesn't want to be near people. So I put a leash on her, took her outside to, see how she handled. She clung to my leg. I opened the car door. She climbed into the car and just hid behind the back seat. And I'm like, okay, she wants to go home. Um, and from then on, like, I brought her home, I let her out, and she would not leave my side. She was glued to me. She was convinced that I had saved her from the terrifying place with the other dogs and the people, and everything wanted to eat her, and she would panic if I left the house. So I was only supposed to have her for 2 weeks. But at the end of 2 weeks, she was still really scared and really shut down. And I'm like, if I send her back to the shelter, nobody's going to adopt her. So I talked to the shelter and I said, look, I'm willing to foster her. And that way, if people are interested, if they see her on the website, they can just come to my house and meet her, and she doesn't have to be in the shelter environment, which is really stressful. So, the first couple months, we had a couple people come out and look at her. And one family really was looking at her and then decided to get another dog. And she didn't get along with the other dog. And so that didn't work out. And ultimately, nobody's looked at her in over 2 years. So I think I'm stuck with her. But she's a nice dog, and she's settled in quite a lot. But she still has a lot of fear issues, which is why she's, you're going to see her mostly curled up behind me on the stream. She does come out and play and be social occasionally, and she likes curling up on the couch between people and watching movies. But she's not a really outgoing, like, take her to the park and let her play with strangers dog. So that's Sparkles. Laura named her. She had a different name when she came from the shelter. It was a dumb name. It didn't fit her at all. And so we were trying to get her to respond to things, and Laura just facetiously started calling her Sparkles, and that happened to be the name that she responded to. So it stuck. It doesn't fit any of my other dogs' names. My other dogs were named Lucrezia and Valencia, and now I have Sparkles. So, yeah. Um, Short-term fosters will get you every time. My last one-night foster was here for 18 months. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I have done fostering before, and I had not actually had any failed fosters uh, before, but this was not like Sparkles is not the type of dog. I like pit bulls. I really do like pit bulls. I prefer Dobermans, but pit bulls are fine. But Sparkles is not the type of dog that I would have gone looking for if I were looking for another dog because I do competition and I like going out and doing active things with the dogs. And Sparkles would not be comfortable going into an obedience ring or a rally ring or freestyle or anything like that. So Sparkles is not the type of dog that I would have gone looking for, but she is the dog I have, and I feel really bad saying, "Hey, you're a really sweet dog, but sorry you don't have the right coat color, so you're not staying." So I'm just gonna keep her, I think. Don't tell her that though, because then she'll never let me live it down, and she'll probably sleep on my pillow. She does that anyway. Um, what reasons would you choose to ventilate a wig as opposed to using it as is? Well, in the case of the wig I'm doing right now, the wig that I need doesn't exist because it's a very specific style with very specific colors running through it. So there are several reasons you might choose to ventilate a wig. One is to make a wig that you can't buy commercially or that you can't buy commercially for less than 4 times the price of a standard wig. Um, so all of the wigs for the costume set that we're working on for this particular costume set are they are dark wigs with streaks of red running through them in particular patterns. And you can get black wigs with red streaks, but they fall into two categories. They are either Halloween type wigs, which are really horrible quality and don't hold up to repeated wearing, which is not something we want if we're doing competition costumes, or they are typically like fashion ombre dyed wigs that are red at the tips but black at the top, which doesn't look like the characters. And in this case, these are actually wigs from the costumes are from a Chinese drama that have very specific hairlines that are not the sort of hairlines that come on most commercial wigs. I've got wig fiber all over me. Sorry. So the male hairlines tend to have the very dramatic, the point forward at the temple and then come down into the sideburns and all of that. And that is a hairline that I had to create when I ventilated the wig for my character. So in that case, I got a lace front wig that had a really wide band of lace on the front, and I went in and ventilated the entire hairline around the edge. This one is for Lara's character, and she just has a normal hairline. It's a straight hairline because she's got her hair down, so that the rest of it doesn't show. But it still has the red stripes in it. So you can either ventilate to add more fiber to a wig if the wig's thinner than you want, or you can ventilate to add different colors or textures to the wig, or you can ventilate to change the hairline. So basically, you're just creating a wig that wasn't what you bought. And sometimes, especially in the cases of if you're doing something from a movie or a television show where maybe you're trying to match the actor's hairline, maybe the actor has a widow's peak and you don't, or something like that. You might want to ventilate to make it look like a specific person as opposed to just I need a brown wig. So that's another thing you could do. Oh, Laura found the Hawkeye photos. She's posting a link. I'm going to try to straighten this out a little bit. I'm having trouble accessing enough of this lace to put in sufficient fiber. Since the wig is already ventilated in this spot with black fiber, I'm trying to squeeze the red in between, which can be a little tricky. So here's the progress. You know how long I've been talking, and this is how much I've got in right now, is that little skinny red streak. So we're going to be here a while. Because it needs to be a slightly bigger red streak. And then what I'm probably going to do, because this fiber is not going to be all the way to the ends, because I'm only dealing with 18 inches as opposed to 3 feet, once I tie it, I'm probably just going to sew a couple of strips of weft underneath the black hair so that when it's hanging down, some of the red shows through. And that'll give the effect that the red goes all the way through. But it'll save me some effort doing this in stages, because if I really wanted the red to be all the way down to the base, I would have to ventilate this section and then lift up a section of the black and ventilate underneath that and then keep working it through all the way down the scalp. And that sounds like a lot more work than sewing in some weft that's not going to show anyway. Any other questions? Commentary? Discussion? And it doesn't need to be cosplay related. If you have a burning question about something else, just don't get anything too weird. For those of you who came from Laura's channel, if you're still working on your projects that you were working on there, feel free to continue working on them with the soothing background of me ventilating a wig. I can't continue working on mine while doing this because I was editing a story, and unfortunately, I need to be looking at the screen and not at wig fiber for that. It's not the most down-to-the-wire story I've ever done, but it is due in a couple days, and I just finished the draft an hour ago, so. If you had to guess, ballpark, how many different costumes have you done? Me personally, I would say, I mean, it kind of depends on how you define costumes, because some things are like, oh, there's a movie premiere, quick, grab something out of my closet, throw it together. I would say probably around 150 for me. If we're talking for the whole group, since there are 3 of us, it's probably going to be closer to 250, 300. I don't know, because I have done more individual costumes than, say, Mark has done individual costumes, so that it's not like exactly 100 per person or something. I've probably done 150 at least. But I've also been doing this for 19 years, coming up on 19 years. And again, some of those are just one-off costumes, like, you know, the Historic Artcraft Theater, which is a 1922 movie house in Franklin, Indiana. We sponsor a lot of things there, and we do a lot of live events there. So when they show classic films as a fundraiser for the theater, we'll often go down and dress up for the classic films. So sometimes it's things like that. It's not a full competition costume. So, and I do, like, my cousins have a Halloween party every year outdoors, so I try to do a different costume for that every year. And sometimes those are con costumes that I just recycle, and sometimes those are, I don't want to take my convention costumes someplace where there's a bonfire and it might catch fire, so I make something different. But um, oh yeah, working on your own wig is a good idea too. You can do that. It's thematic, it's topical. So this fiber color, Arda's fibers are rarely just one color. If you order a specific color, like, you know, this is, I think, candy red. I forget, it was on the package. You know, it'll be a blend of 3 or 4 different fiber colors together. And this one has a lot of blonde, which I was not expecting. So I'm getting like little, you know, once it's spread out over the black hair, I'm getting little hints of gold in it, which means I'm probably actually going to have to ventilate in a lot more red than I was anticipating to hide the blonde streaks. So more work for me. Oops. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're ordering on the website. It's like, it looks red. It looks like the right shade of red, but, you know, it's a photo on the website. So it's hard to tell exactly what it's going to look like when it shows up. And they do sell fiber rings with swatches, so you can order a ring and just have a swatch of every single color they carry. But normally, it doesn't matter that much. If it's got like a slight hint of another color in it, it's close enough. But this one, since I'm doing individual strands and not just a chunk of fiber, it's showing up a little bit more. Speaking of which, this thing is going to be a heavy monster. What would you recommend as support for a heavy wig? Do you mean Do you mean the entire wig is heavy and you need to anchor it on your head better, or do you mean it's a big, like it's up, standing up off your head and you need something internal to structure it? Because they will have different answers. Because if you have a very heavy wig that you need to anchor to your head, things like toupee clips can help. There are wig strips that'll help grip. They're basically grips that go over your own hair or your own forehead and help. So you make it non-slip. Um, and if you were using something like toupee clips, which are the little flexi clips that actually snap into your hair, don't just put one or two in, put like 8 of them in, because otherwise you'll just end up with bald patches when the wig slips back and rips your hair out of your temples. Not that that ever happened to me. Heyday. Um, but if you're doing something that's a large superstructure, then there are a couple of materials you can use for that, if that is indeed your question. Um, Generally, you want as much contact between a wig and your head as possible. And if you can anchor it into your own hair, that's ideal. But you, again, don't want to rip your hair out. Yeah. I used to use toupee clips in all the wigs that I ever did. And instead, now I just get really good at braiding my hair more securely so I can pin the wig into my hair better. And that works pretty well, but a lot of it depends on what your hair is like. I mean, if you've got the hair that is short enough that you can't pin curl it or braid it very efficiently, or if your hair is thick enough that braiding it would make it too lumpy, or if your hair is not the right texture to pin into or something like that, then you want to do different things. Or do whatever works with your own hair texture, because everybody's different. Oh man, I should have been here earlier. I had a friend give me a Zoom haircut earlier this afternoon. Then you could be doing wigs and I could give myself the most pandemic haircut of all time. I am, yeah, yeah, I am super overdue for a haircut, and if the pandemic ever ends and I ever get back to a hair salon, my stylist is just going to be staring at me because it's been 2 years since I've had a haircut, and I need at least 10 inches taken off. And I have not had the courage to do the Zoom haircut thing yet. Even though, my hair is straight and it's just a straight cut across the bottom, and it wouldn't be that hard to do a haircut myself or have somebody do it. It's really just I don't want to screw it up because why am I worried about it? Nobody's going to see it. It's 2021. I'm not going out in public anyway. It'd probably grow out. But yeah, if you want to give yourself like a bang trim or something while you're here, that's cool too. Or you can just pretend. After this year, I kept joking that I was just going to cut all my hair off because I'm like, I'm so sick of it. It just spends every day up in a clip anyway because it's not like I go out in public. For the first half of the pandemic, nobody was showering anyway, right? And so then I'm like, well, if I did cut my hair off, then I'd have to save the length of my hair and make a wig out of it so it looked like my hair. And I'm like, but then if I'm going to wear my hair anyway, why would I? So I just, it doesn't make any sense to do that. But it's fun to talk about. The whole thing is heavy even before styling. It already weighs 3 pounds. Ouch! That is a heavy wig. My T'Pring wig was 2.6 pounds, and that was uncomfortable by the end of the day. So I am sympathetic. So balancing it is going to be the big thing. If you can find a way to distribute the weight around your head so it doesn't put the pressure on any one spot, because I'm with 3 pounds, if you've got like all of the weight is attaching to clips right up here, that's really going to hurt after a while. Um, and I know you guys do insane, like really complicated engineering feats anyway, so you might just have to do engineering on your wig. But 3 pounds, man. Padding, maybe? I don't know. Can you do a chin strap? Is there any way you can take that pressure off your scalp? Because that just sounds uncomfortable. I'll be curious to see it when it's done, though, because it sounds elaborate. All right, well, we're getting close to some coverage on this one stripe. I'm going to obviously have to do the other side. And then I may go in and do the weft underneath and see how it looks so I know how much I need to actually ventilate in. It'd be great if I didn't have to do a really thick ventilating job. I am going to have to straighten some of this fiber out though, because it's a little bit kinked after being pulled through, which is it's a risk. You know, if you've ever wrapped a package with the curling ribbon and you scrape the scissors blade along and the ribbon curls up, wig fiber can do that if it hooks on the ventilating barb. So you have to be kind of careful, and then sometimes it gets a little weird and wonky looking. But if it's heat resistant fiber, which this is relatively, it's not super high temperature, but I could do it. I can use a hair straightener and smooth it out a little bit. But it's getting there slowly. There is, in fact, a red streak in the wig, so that's progress. I really should probably get, for projects like this where I just need a massive chunk of hair, I should get a larger needle that's not just pulling a couple of strands at a time. I think the biggest one I have, which I think is on here, is I think a 4-strand. I think you can get up to a 6 or 8 strand ventilating needle, which would be just like giant chunks of hair tied in, which doesn't look really good if you're doing around the face. Like if you're putting a false hairline in, 6 or 8 strands coming in a chunk out of your face is way too much. You want 1 or 2 strands, because your hair grows out 1 strand at a time. It doesn't have like 6 strands exploding out of a single hair follicle. But if you're doing something that's back in the middle of the hair like this is, and it's not going to be over the skin directly, it's going to be over a wig cap, it doesn't really matter if you have 6 strands at once. I'm thinking an understructure at this point, but I might get away with styling it to balance the weight. So there's a material that I've completely blanked on the name of. CosplaySupplies.com sells it. It is basically an open mesh version of Warbler Wonderflex. So it's it looks sort of like cheesecloth, but it's a thermoplastic cheesecloth. And I know some people use that for Veriflex. Veriflex? Veriform. Veriform. It's called Veriform. And people use that as a wig substructure to take some of the weight of the fiber out. So you end up, if you've got like a giant beehive, you would have the Veriform structure underneath and then put the fiber over. It's like an alternative to using upholstery foam or stuff people used to do. So if you have the sort of style that would allow for a substructure, you might look at something that's a mesh product like that. So you end up with nothing taking up that weight on your head, as opposed to having to have additional weight holding up the hair. And I don't know what costume you're doing, so it may or may not be appropriate for that, but something to think about if you can do it. Ribbon curling comment made me think of a question. Is wig fiber always straight when you're adding it, and then you add texture by styling, or is there pre-curled or pre-waved fiber? There is pre-curled and pre-waved fiber. It's typically used for making fashion type, either fashion extensions or fashion weaves. There are braiding fibers. If you're doing like cornrow type braids, a lot of them will have a very slight wave texture to them already because it makes them hold the braids better. So there are a lot of different textures of wig fibers that come for a specific purpose. Depending on what you're doing, if I'm ventilating individual strands into a wig, usually I'm looking for a straight, more silky fiber because 1, it makes the ventilating a lot easier, and 2, I want to style that to match the ultimate wig look. So this is a straight wig, I'm going to use straight fiber. If I'm doing even a wavy wig, I wouldn't want pre-waved fiber because it's going to make a mess when I'm ventilating it, and then there's no guarantee that those waves will match the waves that are in the wig. So in that case, I would ventilate first and then style it afterwards. But if you're doing something like, well, actually, Seneca, you did something on, I saw on Instagram you did your own braids. Please help me out here because I have no idea what exactly you did. I just saw your photos and they were cute. But there are different hair products that are made for different purposes, and you can get, like, if you're going to be doing specifically a really big bulky extension braid or a different texture, you can absolutely get customized fibers for those purposes. But most of what I do, if I'm adding hair to a wig, it's usually going to be straight because I'm trying to match the fiber that the wig is made out of. And the majority of wigs, with some exceptions, but the majority of the type of wigs we use for cosplay tend to be made out of just straight slick fiber that is then styled afterwards. I have done some like clip-in type pieces using more textured fibers, but that was mostly a factor of what was available in my area because back when we started cosplaying many moons ago, There wasn't such a thing as cosplay wigs. You had like the junky Party City Halloween wigs that you could wear once and they would fall apart, or you had hair replacement wigs that were sold for people who wanted a fashion or hair replacement wig. They didn't come in unnatural colors. You had like a wig shop in your town, and that was it. And and yeah, it just you didn't have the kind of fiber options we have nowadays. So it really depends on what you have accessible. And in the last 10 years the wig industry has gone ballistic in terms of cosplay went really mainstream, so people started realizing there was a demand for, oh hey, people want high quality wigs in non-natural colors, wow. And also non-natural colors became fashionable, so people would put purple streaks in their hair, or people would put feathers in their hair, or things like that. So you really had an expansion of the market, and now you can get almost anything. The internet helped too, because before before you had all these sites making custom wigs, it was like whatever you could find at the mall. Maybe. Maybe. Oh yeah, it was the pre-made. You did the dreadlock things. Yeah, they were cute, whatever they were. Um, and yeah, that's a really good point. Is the black hair fashion, the wig marketing for women of color especially has really come a long way in terms of the availability of different products. The it's lessened a lot of the stigma as well. It was weird because even though wigs were a thing that lots of people wore, there was kind of a oh well, it's not real. And now Beyonce wears wigs, so everybody can wear wigs. It's sort of a different thing now. But also things like the lace fronts. A huge part of the reason we have such a wide variety of lace front wigs available is because they became fashionable and women of color were really making them popular. And because there was a market for them, people started expanding into that market. And now anybody can go in and get a lace front. You can buy wig lace in a variety of skin tones. This one actually, if you look at my canvas wig head, and this is a natural unbleached canvas wig head, so it's a little bit lighter than my Dutch skin. But you can see that the wig lace is a little bit darker than the canvas. This wig was sold as a black women's fashion wig, so the wig lace is a little bit darker on it, and you can actually buy wigs from a range of skin tones. So whatever your skin tone is, you can find a wig lace to match it, which is great for cosplayers because sometimes we're trying to match our own skin tone, sometimes we're trying to match somebody who's gray or purple or green skin tone because we're playing a non-human character. So it's great to have those options, but almost all of that is due to the market for wigs for women of color, which really helped the cosplay community. So definitely want to acknowledge that. Just talking about this with Carmana today about how these kids these days don't appreciate all the options they have now and how no one knows what marker dyeing is. Get off my lawn. Actually, I'm gonna have to Sharpie dye my wig. So I bought this is very frustrating. I bought a wig for Flynn actually. I bought a beautiful, perfect shade of blended yellow. It was an Arta Fairy Blonde, and absolutely perfect color for what I needed. But I got the wig and I bought extensions to weft them in, and I'm like, you know what? I can't make this wig work. The structure of the wig is not going to work for the character I need. And it was one of those where I was kind of on the fence about it anyway, and I'm like, it's just not going to work. So I bought a different wig from a different manufacturer, which is the absolute perfect structure for what I need, but it came in platinum blonde. And so now I've got like, well, this is the color I need, but that's the style I need. So my only option is to Sharpie dye the wig, which I have not done in like 10 years. So it's going to be real fun. Technically, strictly speaking, I'm going to probably Copic marker dye the wig because I've got a lot more shades of yellow in my Copic sets. But yeah, I'm going to be hand coloring a wig. So if I get tired of ventilating, I can do that later. Um, Cosplay has definitely normalized wigs and color availability. Absolutely. Sharpie dyed my bun donut. Yeah, Sharpie dyeing's a thing. A friend of ours, Emmy, if anybody remembers, a couple weeks ago, Laura had Amelia on talking about historical fabric construction and spinning and weaving. And before that, she was talking about metal casting. The first time I met Emmy, she was wearing a costume that she had Sharpie dyed the fabric for. So she was wearing a full dress that she had used Sharpies to dye the fabric because she couldn't get the fabric dye in the color she needed for the character. So yeah, kids these days have no idea how much we ruined our bathrooms and our kitchen sinks and how many security deposits were lost because of Sharpie dyeing. Cosplay is so easy now compared to 20 years ago. Yeah, thermoplastics. Wonderflex. I remember when Wonderflex was new and it was like, oh my gosh, you can hand form things out of plastic. And now there are like 17 competing brands of thermoplastic that cosplayers use. It's ridiculous. Kids these days, we didn't have YouTube. YouTube didn't exist yet. There was no such thing as a YouTube tutorial. In fact, I often forget that YouTube tutorials exist. And then I'm like, man, I wish I could figure out how to do this. And somebody's like, well, why not just watch a tutorial on YouTube? I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. I'm sounding really old now. I mean, I am a little bit old, but have you tried Rit Dimer on a wig yet? I have not because I haven't had a call for it. I have fortunately in the last several years, I mean, since the synthetic dyes became much more available, which has only been in the last 5, 7, 8 years that the stores around me even started carrying them. For the most part, I've been able to buy the colors I needed in the wig, and if I were doing something that was a slightly different color, it was something like this, where I could ventilate in one section or I could tint one area. So I haven't actually had opportunity to try that yet. But I have been thinking, because I'm doing some stuff with some new thermoplastics that I haven't done before, and I'm thinking I might try doing the iDye poly on Transpart, Warbler Transpart, to get some transparent plastic effects. So I might be playing with some of that stuff, and who knows, I might throw some wig fiber in there, see what happens. But now that you can just go to Epic Cosplay or Arta or eBay or whatever and just say, okay, I need a blend of purple and gray fiber, and you can buy a blend of purple and gray fiber. I don't have to dye stuff anymore. It's amazing. Mark's Yuri Lowell wig, we got the nightshade, Arta nightshade color for, and it's his hair in the game it's supposed to be black, but of course it's animated and it's purple in the game. But you don't want to wear a bright purple wig because it's not that. It's sort of like a grayish, blackish, purplish color. And nightshade from Arta is a mix of gray, black, and purple fiber, and it's perfect. So I didn't even have to dye that. It's just like go buy the wig, it's done. Poor Wonderflex, it died of lack of marketing. Most cosplayers still don't know what it is to this day, which is weird because the for a while, for the first 4 years, 3 or 4 years that Wonderflex was marketed, in the phase between green Wonderflex and slick Wonderflex, back when it was just mesh on both sides, but it was white, it was like the new hotness. It was like what Warbler is today. And then it was like the generation that used Coscom died out a little bit, mostly because Coscom died out. And after that, everybody was Warbler was marketed really well and everybody was really familiar with that, but they got really confused about Wonderflex. They're like, oh, is that like old Warbler? What is that? And it used to be that Wonderflex was what everybody went to. So yeah, I don't know if it's just natural turnover and Wonderflex didn't keep up with the marketing well enough to reach the quote unquote next generation of cosplayers or what. But I was shopping. I ordered a bunch of thermoplastics this past week because I'm doing a full body suit of armor. Because I like pain, and so I was ordering several different things to try to see like which variety of Warbler worked best with the foam I was using and things like that. Because I have Terraflex, Warbler's Black Art, and Warbler's Finest Art in my house right now, and some Wonderflex. And I wanted to try Warbler Pearly and a couple other things, so I just ordered a whole bunch of stuff. And I was going through and I'm like, there are so many different kinds of thermoplastics now. And I do an intro to thermoplastics workshop where I talk about 8 or 10 different types of thermoplastics. And I'm like, I need to order samples of 6 more products because there are now so many more kinds that aren't even in my intro to thermoplastics panel, and I need to talk about them. So it's kind of ridiculous how much there is, but it means there's a whole lot of competition. And you have products that nobody in cosplay even uses, like Treeflex. Treeflex is a competitor to Warbler that's basically the same stuff, but is not marketed to cosplayers. It's marketed to like miniatures crafting and theaters and stuff like that. But cosplayers don't know about it because it's not marketed to them. So it's just, there's such a weird spread of information out there. And, some sites like cosplaysupplies.com carries a really wide variety of stuff, but even they don't have everything. So it's just, there's so much information, so much stuff, so much to do. So the other hazard of doing ventilating is that you end up with little shreds of wig fiber all over your entire workspace and self. So I now have tangles of red fiber all over my lap. I did this the last time I ventilated a wig was the my wig for this same costume set, which I actually did 2 years ago because that's when we started working on them was 2 years ago, and then the pandemic happened. But I did it sitting on my couch, and I have a white couch. It was not white when I was done with it. It was a red couch when I was done with it. I had to vacuum it several times. I had to run the cushions through the washer. Like it was just, it took forever to get all that red fiber out. The only saving grace in this situation is as soon as the pandemic is over enough that I can safely have people in my house, this carpet that I'm working on is coming out. So, it's just getting replaced with hardwood. So I don't have to worry about ruining my carpet with bits of red fiber stuck to it. All right, so here's where we are. Let me turn this so we can see. So we've got a definite visible streak of red coming through, and I think I'm going to stop on this side, do the other side, and then come back and see how much wefting I can put underneath it. Because it's not a really super bold, wide streak. It's just there's a definite red streak running through her hair. So um, I think that'll end up working pretty well. It's like glitter. Loose wig fiber becomes a curse that spreads all over your house. It really is. Yeah, except a lot more staticky. Glitter is still worse because it's smaller and it gets the thing is, my house was built in the 40s, and so the floorboards have spread and settled. So I have like quarter-inch gaps between a few of the floorboards in my living room. And we worked on um, our Flash Gordon costumes, the Flash Gordon 1980 movie with Sam Jones and uh, Max von Sydow. And we did Dale Arden, Flash Gordon, and Emperor Ming, all of whom were made out of microsequins. And Dale had all of her accessories made out of loose glitter that I glued down to various things. And so my house was basically just a glitter bomb for about 6 months. But to this day, we did those costumes a decade ago at least. To this day, I can walk through my living room and the gaps in the floorboards are still filled with glitter that won't vacuum out. It never goes away. The glitter is everywhere. And it's just permanent. It's a fixture now. Hope whoever buys this house after me likes disco balls, because they're going to be living in one. But I have definitely vacuumed my sewing room after working on a wig, and I've had to clean out the beater bar, because there is carpet in my upstairs. And the beater bar gets wig fiber tangled all the way around it, and that's really bad for the vacuum, because then it just binds up. And it's plastic. It's not, if you're working with human hair, that's one thing. It's biodegradable and it's not that difficult to clean out of things. But the plastic fiber from wigs is just bad. And you definitely, the worst thing is probably synthetic fur. I hate working with faux fur because it's like wig fiber, only smaller, shorter, and worse. And you have to cut it more often. And it tangles in your machine, ruins your sewing machine. It's just awful. The things we work with on purpose for cosplay. So who else has a question? I do appreciate all of you hanging out with me and chatting to keep me from going insane while I slowly ventilate wigs. I am not the type of person who can watch TV while working on something, so I do audiobooks sometimes, and I have subscriptions to Big Finish audio dramas and stuff. But if I don't have something like that available, it's just like me ventilating a wig forever. I have no idea how people. I've lots of friends who are like, "Oh yeah, I watched an entire season of this show while working on this costume." Like, how do you do that? My brain cannot process other visual input while I'm working on something. I hate having TVs on in the room with me if I'm not sitting down to watch something. But everybody's brains are different, I guess. Maybe if it were something I'd seen before, I don't know. I'd still want to watch it, I think. I could not possibly do a task like this without audio input. Yeah, right now my audio input is the sound of my own voice, but at least, I'm engaging in some sort of conversation with people, so that helps. I really need to just call up all of my friends and do like a group voice chat, and then we could tell terrible stories or something. Um, in our Zoom and Google Meet world, where we're all getting used to video chats. It's something that our writers group. We have a writers group chat, and we sometimes get together and do Zoom writing sessions, which is kind of ridiculous because we're all staring at our own screens working on our own stories. But the fact that the Zoom window is open means there's accountability. So we have to keep working. And it actually helps. Like, I don't know why psychologically it helps, except we're all technically doing the same thing in different places, but it does help. So I managed to ventilate the left side of the wig using all of the available part space. Now I'm trying to figure out where to put the hair for the right side of the wig. I did not think this through. So I'm squeezing it in between. Oh, let go. There we go. I don't know if this is helpful, but when I'm in the leather workshop, I can watch TV videos, see audio descriptions and subtitle settings on Netflix at the same time. Huh. So it's not a matter of me not being able to follow a show because, it is possible to listen to something and follow it. Like I do audiobooks and audio dramas and stuff all the time. And I don't even necessarily have to be focusing really hard visually on the TV to follow what's going on. It's more the matter of I'm a very visual person, so if there is visual input, my eyes need to be looking at that. So if there's a TV screen, like even the fact that I have my screen with my chat and everything going on for Twitch going on right here is somewhat distracting because I keep glancing at it instead of this. If there's a screen on in the room, I need to be looking at the screen. My brain can't just tune out the visual input, so it's hard for me to focus on a task while there's video going on, which is why I can I can listen to music, I can listen to an audiobook, I can talk to somebody, but I can't have anything visual happening because it's the way I've always been. Like I've never been able to focus when there was a TV on in the room. And when I do watch stuff, which I really don't watch that much. Like, I have subscriptions to several TV services that I will go for literally months without turning on, and I'm not sure why I'm paying for them. But when I do watch things, I really like to focus on them, and I like to, think about, oh, the shot framing on this, and oh, the angle on that. But I don't tend to just tune them out. So I think it's the way I am. Because it's not that I can't follow it, it's that I can't focus on my work when it's on. But I love audio dramas, and I have a lot of those. So frequently, if I'm working on something that's just a tedious, repetitive task like hand embroidery or braiding something or knitting or anything like that, I will often do that while I have an audio drama running. And I listen to audio dramas in airplanes and things like that. And I have a backlog because normally I listen to audio dramas in the car if I'm driving someplace. Like I drive across town once a week for my doctor's appointments or whatever, and I'll listen in the car, or I'll listen while I'm at my doctor's appointments because I have therapy for my spine, and I end up like lying on a table for 30 minutes a week. So I'll listen to him then. And I have not been listening because I haven't been able to go to my appointments at all while the pandemic was going on. So I'm like a year behind on some of my subscriptions. And it's kind of sad because, when I'm home, I'm doing other stuff and I'm not just sitting down and listening to something. So maybe this is a good excuse. I can actually start catching up on all my podcasts and audio dramas. I have a substantial backlog. Oh, good. It's not just me. There are other people like me too. Great. Yeah, Laura, the thing you said about professional talks where a speaker had a TV on in the background, like when I was doing dog training in people's homes, and a client would call me in, and they'd have their dog who had X behavior problem. I'm like, okay, I need to work with the entire family, and they would have a TV blaring in the background, like just constantly, and so nobody's able to hear what I'm trying to say, and the dog is distracted because there's noise and there's a strange person in the house. And then they'd get really offended when I would ask him to turn off the TV. I'm like, why do you need a TV on? You're paying me $75 an hour to stand in your living room and tell you what to do with your dog, and you want to watch the news? Like, what is going on? How does your brain work this way? But to each their own, I guess. Do you have recommendations for audio dramas? Yes, yes, I do. You already mentioned it. Um, so, Verity Weaver obviously is self promotion because I was in it, but I really like a lot of the Big Finish dramas. Big Finish is a British company that they do a lot of licensed dramas. So they own the licenses to Doctor Who, Torchwood, Dark Shadows, no, wait, that's what's the other one? They have the licenses to a bunch of British series. So they make ongoing audio dramas about the characters from those series. And their Doctor Who ones are very good. The Torchwood ones are very good. But they also do a lot of spins on classic literature. So they have a Dorian Gray original series, they have a Dracula original series that are sort of expanded from the original stories. And they're, what if Dorian Gray actually just went on adventures for the next 50 years? So they've got some really good original stuff. They've got a series called Atta Girl that's set during World War II, about the female workers in the British air services, and so there are a lot of things that Big Finish has that are really interesting. So you might check that out. There are thousands and thousands of titles. It's not easy to sort through them all, but they do have a lot. Um, I really like audiobooks if I can get a good audiobook, but I really love full cast audio dramas is what I listen to most often. So a lot of it's going to depend on your personal taste in entertainment because like I can recommend uh, I can tell you which Doctor Who or Torchwood ones I like if you're a Doctor Who or Torchwood fan. Or if you like Sherlock Holmes, Big Finish has some decent Sherlock Holmes adaptations. There's so much out there. There's a lot of really good podcasts. The Thrilling Adventure Hour, if you like old time radio, which I'm a big fan of old time radio too. The Thrilling Adventure Hour has some really great sort of modern uh, send-ups and or homages to old time radio, and that was I don't think they're still producing now, but they were a major podcast for some years, and you can definitely still get the episodes. And they had some that they'll have some that are in the style of old 1930s westerns, and they have some that are in the style of the Thin Man movies, and they have some that are in the style of you know detective hard-boiled detective stories or whatever, but they're all sort of loving send-ups of so that's a really good one. Other people are welcome to throw stuff in the chat too if you have favorite podcasts and or audio dramas. Um, so there's so much out there. In fact, when Verity Weaver got its full release, because the first episode came out about a year before the rest of the series did, the pandemic hit, and they launched the rest of the series just at the beginning of the pandemic, and the ratings actually took a dive when the pandemic started because so many new people started podcasts and audio dramas that month that it was like a 400% leap in the competition just because everybody last year decided, well, we're stuck at home, let's make audio dramas. So there's a whole lot more material out there than there used to be. So it's definitely worth exploring some of the podcast sites and just browsing by genre if you have a specific genre you're looking for. Thrilling Adventure Hour is no more, but the episodes are still up, yeah, because I've listened to some of them. Within like the last couple of years, and not this month, but I believe they're still up on most of the major podcast sites. But I don't think they're doing the shows anymore. They were doing live tours, much like Welcome to Night Vale and some of the other popular podcasts. They were doing live tours for a while, and doing live performances, which I think would have been really fun to watch because it's just like the live radio audience. But sadly, didn't get those while they were still up. Yes, all of the training people are like, yes, dog training. Why? We can all share client horror stories because we've all had the same kind of clients. But it's such a weird thing. Like, why would you pay somebody, pay a professional to come and do a professional service and then make it impossible to take advantage of their professional work? I don't know. It's a strange mindset. It's like going to the doctor and just sitting and playing on your phone the entire time instead of actually talking to your doctor at the appointment. So I'm actually making more progress on this than I thought I would initially. Um, and we're getting a decent bit of red in here. It shows up really well against the black, so it's taking less fiber than I thought it would. I'm surprised to hear the ratings dropped at the beginning of the pandemic. I went the other way. Oh, oh no, it's not that people weren't listening. We actually had the same we had a growing number of listeners each week. It's that if you have 100 shows and you rate, I don't know what our numbers were, but let's say we rated number 5 out of 100, and the next week we had 700 shows. Even if you were number 5 the week before, you're not going to stay number 5 because now you have so much more competition. So it was just that there was so much new content that it was really hard to stay on the charts. And it was all audio dramas that people were like, "Hey guys, I've got a script. We've all got microphones at home. Let's go." Um, which I mean, I'm always thrilled that there's new audio material out there because I love audio dramas, and I actually auditioned for a bunch more last year because there were so many new ones. Um, but it was just a huge uptick in the total numbers of them, which my opinion is the more the better, because if people get in the habit of listening to them, then we'll get better quality ones, we'll get better selection, we'll get better variety. Competition's not a bad thing. But it was interesting that it all happened like within a couple weeks of the pandemic starting. Suddenly there were a huge number of new podcasts. Yeah, it wasn't that people weren't listening, which I appreciate you listening. Thank you. The creators, thank you. I missed that show. I really enjoyed doing that show. It was a lot of fun. It had just some fantastic scripts, which the chance to work in something with a good script is rare because even when I get acting jobs, there's a lot of independent film in Indiana, and I'll periodically do films that are local to me. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'm going to swallow my pride and say these terrible stilted lines and do the best I can with them. But then if somebody hands you an actual good script, you're like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's great. It's so much more rewarding to do work with a decent script. And of course, as a writer and as somebody, as the child of an editor, I inherently want to fix the problems with the script, which as an actor you're not allowed to do. Like it's actually really bad form to go up to the writer and be like, "Hey, you wrote this wrong. Can I just fix it when I say it?" Like that's bad. Um, in if you're doing it on a union production, that can get you fired and sued. Like there's a lot wrong with that. But at the same point, I'm like, can I just fix the grammar on this line? You used the wrong word. Can I just say the right word instead? Will anybody notice if I fix that? I tend to be a little bit pedantic about that sort of thing because that's me. Well, Laura, you might end up with a wig. It's looking that way. I've still got to do the wefting, but the streaks are at least coming out nicely. I'm making this work with more strands than it's strictly supposed to be doing, so I'm actually getting 4 or 5 strands in each twist, which is making this go a little faster. But I am running out of lace. So I did style one wig last week, so I've got one of those done. I had already done my wig for this costume set, so that one's done. I've still got to do my Flynn wig, which means I need to dye the wig and style it because the wig I had that was the right color, as I said, didn't work out. Um, and then I've got, fortunately, Mark's Yuri wig only needs a bang trim, which is not time sensitive because I can do that right before we actually wear them, whenever we end up wearing them. None of these wigs have any debut dates because we don't know when the cons are coming back. It's just I'm tired of not working on stuff, so I need to get them done because I've got such a backlog. But we don't know when we're wearing them or where. We're assuming we're wearing them. At some point, we will wear the costumes. But I really hope, like, it's in a decade where I still fit in my costume when I wear the costume. So that's why I'm thinking I may just do some simple costumes for some of the online conventions this year because I'm tired of not doing any cosplay in a random year. Um, would you pull any of the black fibers out if it came down to it? I could. My concern is that since this is This is not a super high quality wig, so the black fiber is not that thick to begin with, and I'm honestly a little worried about it showing through, because there's just the little semicircle of lace in front, and then there's a big hard seam where the weft starts. And the fact that I was able to kind of part it and comb the hair over it is hiding that seam, but if I thin the top hair out any, I'm worried that the seam's going to show. It's not a very well constructed wig. Like it was literally like a $30 lace top wig. It's not going to be well constructed. If we wanted a well constructed one, we would have bought a real wig. But yeah, I could do that. I'm trying to squeeze it in where I can because again, it doesn't need to be like a huge solid streak. It just needs to be visible red. Um, it just needs to be slightly more dense than it is because it's kind of spread out over the top right now. But it's probably not. I mean, it's not like the judges are going to be there measuring, oh no, it's 4 millimeters wide in the reference image and you only did 3 millimeters of fiber. At least I dearly hope they aren't. We don't typically get judges like that. One time we had a judge who was kind of rude about stuff, but that was once, and that was years ago, and she wasn't a cosplay judge anyway. She was I think she was like what was she, a professional seamstress, home ec teacher, something, probably a home ec teacher. Um, but she basically said when people went in, she's like, I don't care if you look like the character. I care if you've done this properly. And how dare you use a commercial pattern because real seamstresses make up their own patterns and don't use commercial patterns. We'd been sewing for less than a year at this point when we went in. So that was not the best judging experience ever. But it was also like 15 years ago. So actually more than 15 years. It was a long time ago. So Laura, how much red do you want in your wig? Questions I probably should have asked before I started ventilating. All right, this is what we got now. I still want to put a little bit more in on this side just so it matches, but this side I think is actually fine because especially if I put a little bit of the red wefting in under maybe starting around here and then hanging down so it shows through, I think that'll be okay. This one needs just like a little bit more density right here, but apart from that, I think we're doing as well as can be expected with this wig. Which means I actually cut too much off the weft because this is all I've got all this left. I don't know where I'm going to put it. I could put it in the back, I guess. I don't know, she doesn't really. I guess she's got streaks of red underneath all the way around, so it wouldn't hurt if I put it in the back, but I don't really need to put it in the back. Actually, I can't put it in the back because there's no lace in the back. Never mind. The back is wefted. I'll just sew in weft. I'll just have some bonus red fiber. I suppose I could check and see if my wig needs any more. I think my wig's pretty done, though. The big thing with mine was adding all the false hairline in front. All of it. You do like red a lot. We all have our signature colors. Laura's is red, mine is green, and Mark's is blue. It's to the point that we just color code stuff in the cosplay room because that's for some reason those are the colors we always end up cosplaying. When we did our Gundam Wing costumes and we did the Oz military uniforms and one of the characters wore blue and one of the characters wore red and one of the characters wore green. We had already chosen which characters we were going to do and it just worked out that those colors were the right ones. I'll see if I can put some in back. If I can't do it on the top layer, I can just weft in the. I've got tons of that red weft because I bought a whole pack of it and I used like 3 inches of it out of the, what is it, 6 feet or something? It's a lot of weft. So she'll definitely get some underneath. My main concern is just keeping the part straight because the lace top on this is so shallow. It only goes back maybe 2 or 3 inches at most. I think it's about 2.5 inches. So her part goes back farther than the lace top on this. So it's just, we're going to have to style it really well and spray it a lot to keep it in place. Wait, did your parents do that to you too? My mom used to color code us. No, my parents never did. It didn't happen until we were doing cosplay. And because, I mean, it was just Laura and I are the only children, so there were only two of us. It was pretty easy to keep us separated, or keep track of us at least. Um, but yeah, when we started doing cosplay stuff and we needed to sort out like whose boxes the costumes were stored in and who was doing what character and all that. So now we just have a rule that if there's a character who wears red, Laura gets to cosplay it because Laura likes red a lot, and I like green. So typically we will go with the colors that suit us best. Um, but that's why, like I was, if you were here for the Dirk Gently costume talk, I started making Queen Susie, and then Laura decided to cosplay, and she's like, "Well, you took the red and black character. Guess what?" So she took Queen Susie, which was fine because I did another character, and I actually really liked my character too, so it was okay. But it was very funny that it was automatic. As soon as she was going to cosplay that, the red and black costume becomes hers. I'm trying to convince her to cosplay uh, with me and Mark with a costume set that we had started that she had not. We were playing a video game together and we chose characters that we were going to cosplay, and she hadn't played the game. So now I'm making her watch videos of the game and trying to convince her. And my first argument was, "There's a character who wears red and black. You can totally cosplay from this game." Because no red and black character is no deal, apparently. To this day, I'm still the blue one. Well, I mean, if it's a system and it works, I guess. But, it was I guess technically when we were showing horses, when we were little kids and we were doing like horse 4-H, we did have our show colors, and those were I'm trying to remember. My color was hot pink. It was the 80s. So my color was hot pink, and Laura's I think was blue, like a royal blue, because those are the colors that my parents found the tack on sale for. And also like what equipment we had for the horses. So I think that was the only time we were ever really color coded as kids, and it was for a specific venue. Um, but yeah, as a routine they didn't do it, but I can see it happening. Having done it for cosplay enough, I can totally see parents saying, "Oh, that sounds easier." Yeah, Sparkles is yodeling at the front. Every time a truck goes by, the pandemic has been bad for Sparkles because now if she sees anything that looks like UPS or a FedEx truck, she goes through my front window. It's bad. So every once in a while, a van or a truck will go by and the axle will rumble on the street, and she has to go defend the house from it and make a lot of noise. No human kids, but I do color code my dogs. Oh, I did that, yeah. Lucrezia was blue and Valencia was red when I had two dogs, two Dobermans at the same time. Um, so I have done it with dogs. Actually, it's been a while since I've had to. Well, I guess I had Valencia and Speak at the same time as the last time I had two dogs. Um, Speak didn't really have a dedicated color. I think she wore a black collar and she was a black Doberman, so it all kind of blended together. Wow, I managed to snag a strand of hair that won't let go. At least with dogs, though, you can use the excuse that, this dog's coat is this color, and therefore that color looks better on them, so I'll make all of the dog's equipment that one color that looks good on them. It's harder to do that with kids because presumably, like, unless your children have dramatically different skin tones or hair colors, which is possible, if you look more or less like your siblings, it's harder to use the excuse that you look better in one color than another. Do you also do Eurodobes or American? All of my dogs are rescues, so I have never actually sourced a dog from any place in particular. Um, Unlike Laura, I wasn't doing specific sports that called for a specific bloodline. I was just, I was doing rally or obedience, or I did a little bit of Schutzen training with Valencia, and we did the BH and the AD, so she did earn those titles, which are German titles. But she wasn't a working line dog. She was a backyard bred rescue. Um, And so yeah, I have not done specifically, a dog of one bloodline or another because all of mine come out of usually fairly terrible abuse situations. So Lucrezia was found on the street. She was the smartest dog I've ever had. She was a blue Doberman, and at the time I was working in a pet supply store doing training classes, and some people brought her in one night because we had a shelter that adopted out of the store sometime, and they were trying to find a place to take her because they'd found her on the street, and she was starving. She was actually so weak. We thought she was narcoleptic because she would just periodically be standing there and just collapse and fall over. And it turned out, no, she was just malnourished. So once she started eating again, that went away. But she was just super, super smart and super friendly and absolutely amazing, gorgeous blue Doberman. No idea where she came from. Never did. We tried to track her down by her ear crop. We tried, we never did find out. But she was, so she was just a off the street dog. Valencia was an acquaintance of ours, was driving down the street and saw this really emaciated Doberman tied to a tree in somebody's yard. Went up. She was braver than I would have been. She knocked on the guy's door and she's like, so you're going to give me that dog or are you going to have me call animal control and report you for abuse? It turned out the dog had belonged to his ex-wife and he was basically deliberately starving the dog to get back at her because that's mature. So Valencia was rescued and came to me, and Spica was out of a similar bad situation. So yeah, basically all of my Dobermans have been emergency rescue types. But then they turned out to be really wonderful dogs once you got them out of an abusive situation. And I did competition with, I didn't do competition with Spica, but I did a bunch of titles with Lucrezia and Valencia. Um, and yeah, so I have never really, I like doing competition, but it was never a driving force enough for me to get a dog specifically bred for it. So I was pretty happy just finding the dogs as they came. Did you say earlier that Valencia lived 14 years? Yes, Valencia was, she was, well, we don't actually know when her birthday was. When I registered her, because I did get her ILP, I put down a birthday for her, and she was within 1 or 2 weeks of her 14th birthday that I had made up for her. So she was definitely within a couple months of whenever she was whelped, her birthday of 14. We don't know if she was just over 14 or just under 14. But she died of leukemia. She was actually doing really well, like amazingly well for her age. She was 13 and people routinely thought she was 7 or 8. And then she was diagnosed with leukemia and it was a really fast decline after that. But yeah, she was just backyard bred, not well treated, not she had a lot of issues. She was clinically OCD. She had a lot of reactivity and fear issues and aggression that we worked on and eventually overcame a lot of. But yeah, she was an amazing dog considering her beginnings. And so I had her. I got her when she was a little. I think she was like 14 or 16 months old when I got her, and I had her until she died at almost 14 or around 14. So that was a very long run. And that's why it was after she died, I was not ready to get another dog because like she'd been in my life for so long that it was a really big change. But then I ended up with the Sparkles, so that's what I got now. Not another Doberman. Was planning on another Doberman. Was hoping to get a fawn. I've never had a fawn. I've had reds, blues, and blacks, but no fawns. Someday I'll get a fawn, maybe, if one needs a home. I don't let myself look at Doberman rescue sites though, because then I want to take them all home. That is a very dangerous thing to do. Although sometimes, I'd just be happy having a dog who's not like dog reactive for a while because my last 3 dogs were dog reactive and it was a lot of work. If I wanted to go out in public, I always had to be prepared. It's like every once in a while you see people going around with these really friendly dogs who like all other dogs. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You don't behave like a dog. Of course, they're also usually not rescue Dobermans who have had terrible experiences with other dogs. So if you've got a beagle or something, of course it's going to be dog friendly. They're bred for that. All right, I think we're actually looking pretty decent. So here's where we are. What do you think, Laura? There's your wig. I can add more if you want me to, or we can just wait and see how it looks once it's sort of styled. Dobie's one of my if I ever leave herding dogs breeds. You can actually find the natural ears and tail a lot more easily. Natural tail is a little harder because in the U.S., very few breeders do natural tail. Natural ears are a lot more common. And now that Eurodobes are becoming more popular, natural tails are becoming more popular. You don't see them a lot, but they do happen. So, and if you're dealing with a breeder who is open to it, you might be able to stipulate before, if you're acquiring a dog from a breeder, you might be able to stipulate the natural tail as well. It depends on what they're breeding for. If they're breeding for conformation, probably not, because they want to be able to place that dog if you're ever unable to take it. But and conformation dogs, I don't believe the AKC allows tails in conformation at this time. But Alena, hero to pointy dogs. They have pointy bits. All right, so I'm going to use one of these twist ties that I pulled out earlier to bind this up so it doesn't shred all over the place. And then if I need to ventilate anything later with red, I can use that fiber. And then I have to detangle this again so I can access the weft and sew some in. Oh my gosh, this is a mess. Oh, so much tangle. Why? Why? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut a little bit of this and just pull it out and detangle it separately. Because detangling this whole mess right now just seems like impossible. Ugh. Oh my gosh. It is a nest. The art of classic, man. I'm going to go buy a gallon of Motion's oil sheen spray and soak the hair with it. Okay, so I've got a little bit of weft here. It's about 3 inches of weft, and I can probably just sew this in underneath somewhere so that it shows through. So I'll put some in the back. She does have streaks throughout. It's just that they don't all go up as far as the lace. And once we have a chance to try this on Laura's head and see what it's actually going to look like, then we'll come back and trim the lace. So the lace ultimately is going to go all the way up to the hairline here. All of this stuff that's sticking down low is going to get trimmed. Because especially with as dark as this lace is and as fair as Laura's skin is, since we're Dutch, we have really pale skin, that's actually going to show and it's going to be fairly hard to conceal. So what I typically do with the lace front is I trim as close to where the hair comes out of it as possible. So it's usually within just 1 or 2 rows of the lace holes, and that way it's just sitting right on the hairline. I actually don't even use wig lace tape or glue that much. Usually if I can pin curl in years when I have bangs, which right now my bangs are down to here, so I don't, but I usually pin curl my bangs right across the front and then use the type of hairpins that don't have the balls on the end and pin it right into the pin curls, and then it doesn't lift up so I don't have to glue the lace down. If you've got a really heavy wig or a wig that slides a lot, you can glue the lace down, but most of the time I don't have to do that. Mostly because I hate cleaning the adhesive out of the wig lace. The tape's not so bad, but the glues, ugh. I don't know how people do that. I don't have the patience to clean it out afterwards. Oh, at some point my clip fell out of the back of this. Good thing I wasn't relying on that to do anything. Alright, so how bad is the wefting under here? Let's find out. Wow. Huh. That's interesting. This actually has fabric in between the weft layers, which is good because it'll hide Laura's hair. But it's bad because their weft layers have these horrible short little bits sticking out, which makes it really hard to add stuff. Did I mention this is not a real hug out of the wig? Alright, we're going to put this up here. So I'm just going to pin all this hair out of the way. Maybe. These are duckbill clips. They are really good for holding hair out of the way when you're styling a wig. Normally, if you're sewing weft in, you use a curved needle, but I think my curved needle is actually too big a diameter to go through this mesh, so I'm just going to use, ow, I'm going to stab myself. I'm going to use a regular needle, and that should work. Oh yeah, the tails, the only time I've seen a backyard bred dog with a tail um, that, was not just a bad doc that somebody did themselves because they didn't want to pay the vet to do it. Um, I saw a completely natural fawn Doberman puppy, absolutely beautiful little puppy, probably like 7 weeks old, came into my store once. And I immediately went over and started fawning all over it because I see a Doberman and I can't resist. And the the people who had brought her in had bought the dog out of the back of a pickup truck in a Walmart parking lot and didn't even know what breed it was. It was just like some guy was selling puppies out of his truck, so we bought one. Like, and you don't even know what this is, a Doberman. Like, it's not a couch dog. What did you think you were getting? And it's just makes my skin crawl because that dog is not going to end up with a happy life. And also, breeder selling uncropped and docked dobes out of a pickup truck. Just no, all the skin crawling. Like, there are backyard breeders. There are backyard breeders who are actually not bad people, but sketchy people selling dogs out of trucks and not even telling the buyers what kind of dog they are. No, not happy with that. Welcome to Elena's cosplay stream where we rant about dogs. We ventilate wigs and rant about backyard breeders. Occasionally talk about cosplay. I'll tell you though, working in a pet supply store in a not very illustrious market, you did see a little of everything with regard to the dog world. Like, if it exists, I've probably seen it or experienced it, good or bad. Because we got a really weird cross section of the populace. All right, there are too many loose strands of hair here. This is going to be a problem. Let's clip this out of the way. Something I've noticed recently is if you order loose fiber from a non-cosplay source, you will receive as a gift the perfectly sized curved needles for sewing wefts. That's good to know. I did not know that. Um, I had some wefting needles once upon a time, probably a decade ago. I don't know where they are, and I think all the curved needles I have left are probably like upholstery needles or something because they're just a little bit too thick for wigs. So I think they're probably not designed for that, and I don't know what happened to my actual curved ones, but I will keep that in mind. Because there are definitely times when I would need to order some loose fiber. The reason I did uh, the reason I ordered the Arta wefts instead of getting loose fiber this time was because I was already ordering from Arta and I had a free shipping code. So I'm like, well, I'll just throw the weft in and then I don't have to pay to ship it. Took the baby and Domi to the vet clinic and got a new vet for the first time. Oh, wow, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's legit. From the vet's perspective, most natural dobes in this country don't actually come from known breeders. And Domiel, on the other hand, definitely had some health testing before she was born. Oh my gosh, docked by a 9-year-old. Ugh. There are a lot of questionable, I hesitate to use the word medical, but questionable practices surrounding dog breeding that for some reason people just give them a pass because they're like, oh no, people have been doing this way for a long time. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, people did a lot of other questionable behaviors throughout history that we don't necessarily want to say it's always been done that way, so maybe we should just keep doing it that way. Like, we could start a lot of fights that way. But some of the docking methods are definitely in that camp. There's just a lot that's not good. Well, this weft sewing job is not going to be pretty, but the hair is going to be over it, so hopefully nobody will actually see the weft sewing job. It doesn't actually have to do anything except hang down and look like hair. So it's fine. If people are flipping up your hair and back looking for the weft, for the seams, you can punch them. If people are flipping up any part of your costume and you haven't given them permission, you can punch them. That's just a general good rule. I'm going to tie this off. Now I have to dig my scissors out from under the pile of hair. Oh, I let go of the needle and now it's tangled in the hair. Let go. Alright, so we take the clips out and we see what this looks like with the hair down. Does it even show? Let's find out. Oh, well, it definitely shows with the fact that it's 10 inches longer than all the rest of the fiber. Sure. Okay, so we may need to add a few more of those because that's actually pretty well hidden. I may also need to put them higher up so they actually show better. Well, depends. I guess it depends on how you comb it. Alright, so we've got a little bit of, let me stick that in there. Got a little bit of red streaks in the back down low. I don't even know if these will show in this lighting. But there's some of this. Oh, wait, that's the top. These, here. There's some red underneath now. If you can see it. There, better lighting. And I'm going to put a few more of those just around the outside so that as the hair moves on you, it'll look like there's colored hair coming through, and it's not just the one streak in the top. I may actually finish a wig tonight. Whoa. That's unheard of. It's not entirely unheard of. I styled my entire Virgil wig in during our Pathfinder gaming session over the last weekend. Of course, that was mostly just an hour of teasing and spraying with Got to Be, and teasing and spraying with Got to Be, and teasing and spraying with Got to Be. There was a lot of teasing involved in that wig. I did have to pluck the front hairline, though. Which plucking is actually really easy. It's the opposite of ventilating. It's taking the knots out. And basically you just grab one side of the hair and slowly pull on it until the knot slides out because they're just looped in. So it's pretty easy to do. It's just time consuming. But the wig I ordered for Virgil, which was my second choice because the company apparently didn't have the first choice wig anymore. They just wrote to me after I ordered it and they're like, yeah, we're actually out of stock on this indefinitely. We don't know what year we're getting them back in. Cool. But the wig I ended up getting had a widow's peak hairline. And the character does not have a widow's peak hairline, so I had to undo the widow's peak hairline. Which happens sometimes. Oh my gosh, so much wig fiber on everything I own. Everything is covered in red fiber, and it will be forever. Probably Sparkles will be covered in red fiber because her bed is right behind me. And now I have red fiber stuck to my lips. Even better. Blech. There is a giant knot in this fiber. Which I'm just going to have to pull out. There we go. It looks like something died on my floor. There's just this spreading puddle of red beneath me. It's actually just the wig fiber that's all separated from the weft. But it's all over the carpet and it looks like a puddle now. if anybody comes into my house. No, seriously, officer. I didn't murder anyone. I was just making a wig. No, really. Writers should be used to that. We're always desperately hoping nobody's monitoring our Google search histories. Wow, this is still tangly. The problem with this really long weft is it's really long fiber, and that gives it a lot of space to tangle. I think fully half of that fiber just came out with that knot. So if you apply a lot of force to weft, because of the way that the weft is sewn together, where it's folded over at the top, and then there's the length of the weft, and then a short stub at the top, and the seam is sewn through that top. But it's not actually anchored very well. It's just stitched in. And if you pull on the long part, it'll pull the short part through, and it'll come out of the knot. So if you overcomb your wigs or you overbrush your weft, you can actually strip the hair out of them, which is not ideal. But that knot was in so deep, I kind of had to do that with that section. Petition for a new live stream podcast. Alena Lara rant about dog things. Honestly, like if I'm styling another wig, we can do that. That can be a topic. I've got a lot of wigs to get through. However, we might scare off some of our viewership or listenership, because we have some opinions. A few opinions. We could just have a podcast of pet retail horror stories, which, I mean, some of them would be horrible and some of them would be horribly funny because we have a lot of combined experience in pet retail. I worked pet retail for 6 years, and that was I was a trainer for much longer than that, but I was specifically doing the retail side of it for 6 years, and that was a trip. Dog people with opinions. Yeah, yeah. What's the saying about, two trainers can agree only on one thing, and that's that the third trainer is doing it wrong? It applies to a lot of walks of life, actually. I managed to pin this wig very efficiently to the canvas wig head, and now I can't get enough slack to put the needle through the lace. Is that a problem? Oh, yes, pet supply retail. That is true. Yeah, no, I worked at a pet supply store, not a pet store. I would not have worked in a pet store. In fact, some of the horror stories that I have surround an actual pet store that was one of our competitors. And the owner of that store used to come in and brag to my bosses about the stuff he put over on his customers. It's like, wow, you're not even sorry about that. But yeah, we sold things like dog food and bedding and collars and things. We didn't sell dogs and cats. There is no reason to buy a dog or cat or any animal really from a pet store ever. Like if you want an animal and you want a specific animal as opposed to just adopting one from a shelter, you go to a breeder or a rescue. Oh, in our city there is a very, very successful chain of pet stores. The same chain that the owner used to come in and brag to my bosses about how he ripped people off. And they've been around for decades, and they are still raking in tremendous amounts of cash. Um, and since we're talking about it, I'll go ahead and tell one of those stories. So we did not sell dogs and cats, but we did have a grooming salon in our store. And so frequently people would buy their animals at the pet store down the street and then bring them into our salon for grooming later. Or, they would come to me for training or whatever. So I had a lot of clients who had bought their dogs at this extremely shady pet store. And our shelter or our grooming salon once had a guy come in, and he had a very expensive dog that he had just paid like $1,500 for at this pet store, which is, if you're paying $1,500 for a pet store dog, wow. Um, but he was very concerned that his dog would receive some prime care because it was a very valuable dog. It was a very rare dog. And our groomer looked at it and she's like, it's a poodle. It's like, it's not even a good poodle. It's just a slightly ugly miniature poodle. She's like, well, it's not that rare. Like it's an, I'm sure it's a nice dog, but it's not a rare breed or anything. We get poodles in here all the time. She's like, no, this isn't a poodle. This is a rare white Sheltie. And the groomer's like, I'm sorry, did you say a rare white Sheltie? Like Shelties don't come in white unless they're albino. Shelties aren't supposed to be white. That's not one of those colors. And he's like, no, I have papers from this pet store that says it's a rare white Sheltie. It's very valuable. And indeed, he had papers from the pet store saying it was a rare white Sheltie. It was somebody's god awful backyard bred miniature poodle that he had paid $1,500 for because it was a rare white Sheltie. And I'm like, you know, it was wrong of the guy to lie to you and rip you off, but if you do not bother looking up on your smartphone what a Sheltie looks like before you buy one and realize that Shelties and poodles look nothing alike at all, maybe you kind of deserved that one. So the man was very irate that we told him that he didn't have a rare white Sheltie, but the pet store doesn't give refunds, so they had his money. They didn't care. And that is one of many, many stories I have like that. We had a lot of very interesting stories happen. Yeah, I do not understand people who like are willing to drop thousands of dollars on a pet, but are not willing to take the extra few minutes to research or find a breeder or at least look up what their pet looks like before dropping thousands of dollars on a pet. Like, do you realize shelters in town will literally give you a dog to get it out of the shelter? Why are you dropping thousands of dollars on a dog that has serious health problems, can't be potty trained, has no medical history? Like, there's just so many problems. I have opinions. In case that should be the disclaimer on this. Create a little video intro for my stream that says warning contains opinions. And I'm not even opposed to people like spending money to get the pet they want. It's if you want a dog for show or for competition, or you just want a dog who's got guaranteed health testing so you don't have to deal with surprise health problems or whatever. Like, I'm totally fine with going to a breeder and getting a dog who's well bred. But that's not the same as going and getting a puppy mill puppy from a pet store that tells you it's a different breed. Really? It doesn't take a lot of logic. Purebred lab puppies. Oh, wow. I'm just catching up on the chat there. Ultra rare genetic throwback, and they were so lucky. Wow, wow, wow. A cropped Gordon Setter seems like Gordon Setters don't even have the same kind of coat as Dobermans, though. Like, they don't even look alike. They are black and tan, but then so are Dachshunds. Gordon Setters are not built like Dobermans. They're not. Their coats are totally different. They have long droopy setter ears. Like, why? Why? right, I'm going to go ahead and just trim some of the length off this so it's not drooping on my floor. It will have to be trimmed further later, but right now this is just getting it from totally unmanageable and tangly to slightly more manageable. All right, I have that one in. Yeah, the natural ear Doberman merch, the thing is, there are only like 3 Doberman graphics for sale, and everybody uses them. And then if people want natural ones, they're like, oh no, we can't buy a natural Doberman, so then they just grab a lab and splotch some brown on it or something. It's just, having had multiple natural ear Dobermans, it's very frustrating to try to buy natural ear Doberman merch. And some people legitimately don't know better, but if you're buying one of the dogs, you ought to know better. Oh no. Okay, I have to go see the purebred lab puppies that just got posted. At least I will if my mouse ever wakes up. There we go. Oh wow, those are definitely purebred labs. That's kind of amazing. Thank you for sharing those. Of course, I had Lucrezia was a blue Doberman, and she was a cropped and docked blue Doberman. She was within breed standard. She was a very gorgeous blue. She was a dark gunmetal color, so she wasn't even like a light silver gray blue. She was a dark blue. A lot of people didn't even realize she was blue because she was so dark. She looked like a postcard Doberman. And I lost track of the number of breeds that people thought she was. She got called a Great Dane, a Pit Bull, a Rottweiler. It was either a Rottweiler or a Rockwilder, depending on who was saying it. Um, a a Lab, a Greyhound because she was gray and Greyhounds are gray because that's how that works. Um, a what were some of the really bizarre ones? Oh, a Vizsla. She was a Vizsla, which she was again a blue cropped Doberman. So yeah, like a lot of people just don't know what dogs look like. But then I had Ortsy, who was a red uncropped Doberman, and she actually did look like a Vizsla because whoever had done her tail had botched it, so she had a longer than usual dock, and she had floppy red ears, so I could see people thinking she was a Vizsla, even though she didn't quite have the same face or build, if you didn't know any better. Um, but I had people get in fights with me over it because they were like, no, Dobermans have pointy ears. She doesn't have pointy ears. Clearly she's not a Doberman. And they didn't believe me that the ears were not born pointy. So sometimes there's just no reasoning with people. One of them wolf dogs. Wow. Wow. I actually did have wolf dogs come in not infrequently because there was a breeder in my area and I had some in my classes. They were all incredibly neophobic and paranoid about everything because wolf dogs are like that. Um, and but yeah, I mean they mostly looked like, I mean you would confuse them with a badly bred Malamute most of the time because that's usually what they were crossed with. But yeah, I did have I think it was Lucrezia. I got asked once if she were a wolf dog. I'm like, again, cropped blue Doberman doesn't look like a wolf. Doesn't have enough hair to be a wolf. Single coated dog. Short coated dog. But again, people are gonna people. Doesn't matter how much you want them to not people at you, they will people at you. Why the wolves are endangered? Too much 30-pound drop eared, mostly white, double row, blue eyed, butterfly nose, baby coated, ducktail, gene pool. Yeah, 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 sure. Alright, I'm gonna sew in some more weft. I did have people come in occasionally with some huskies that they had been sold as wolves. And they have like, the blue eye, curly tail, definite, this is a husky and nothing but a husky. And they'd been told, no, no, this dog's 90% timber wolf. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just, no. No. Dalmatian, that's right. Well, I mean, by the end of her life, Inky did have some spots, but that was mostly because her hair fell out. But Dalmatian. Cruella de Vil really liked Rottweiler fur. Did you not know that? She really wanted that black and tan pattern. So now I'm sewing in a third section of weft under the streaks I put in earlier. My hope is that when this is all down, it looks like all the red streaks kind of flow together. And I don't have to worry about the fact that the top ones are a little bit too short. Which, I mean, once the hair's in motion, it's not going to be that big a deal anyway. But it'd be nice if they all just kind of blend. You should have taken that stud fee, Laura. I mean, Shakespeare would have been a little confused when you took him in to breed, but you could have gotten some money out of it. So all of this weft is going to need trim to the same length as the rest of the wig, but I think I will wait until I have Laura's head to do that, because that way, if the wig cap stretches slightly differently, I don't end up with any weird shapes in the bottom of the wig. At some point, we're going to have to decide when and where we're debuting these. I guess we don't yet know if Gen Con's in person this year. I would be surprised if any cons happen before August, but or any of our usual cons anyway. Most of the ones I know of have already been postponed or gone virtual, but I haven't checked all of them. Be great if we could go to one of the international cons, but oh wait, they don't let Americans in right now. For which I can't even blame them. I wouldn't let us in either. A fox? Wow. A fox. It's like I could almost see if you had a Shiba Inu or something that's a little more foxy, but but Shelties. That's I don't typically associate those with looking like foxes. Usually with Shelties you get the miniature collie people. Oh, it's Lassie. Is that like a miniature Lassie? But foxes. It's a new one. Oh, that one works pretty well. All right, we could probably use another bit of weft in the back just to add some red streaks back there, but I think the front is actually pretty close to done, except for trimming. Um, so yay, that's good. Oh my gosh. Is she teaching her baby to be a service dog? People don't understand like puppies versus adult dogs. And I get some of the confusion. Like constantly people would see my Dobermans and be like, "Oh, you know, my friend's got a miniature Doberman." I'm like, "No, your friend has a miniature pinscher. There's no such thing as a miniature Doberman. Standard pinschers and Dobermans are not the same thing. But at least, you know, pinscher is in the name. But collies and Shelties, like they both look like adult dogs." Yeah, yeah, it's actually working pretty well. It's because it's not in really dense strips. I've just got it ventilated along the part, so it's kind of spread out a little bit. Pulling out some of this loose hair, and then the weft underneath, the way this lines up, I've got this other section sewn underneath, so that when there's the top of it, so it's sewn in here. So when this hair sort of falls over it, it continues that strip all the way down, and it should look more natural when it's moving because the red will come out in the bottom, because there's no way to sew the weft in up here in the lace without potentially damaging the lace, just because this lace is not going to be strong enough to hold that together. But I do need to add another couple little bits of weft in the back, just so the red is consistent throughout. Not that it's consistent in the original. Honestly, the show these are from has some of literally the worst wigs I have ever seen in any professional production. The wigs are mostly terrible. Like, they look like bad cosplay wigs, except most cosplay wigs look better than this show. Um, so anything I do is going to look better than our reference images. The show had a budget. It has like really, really elaborate costumes for the most part. It has, you know, they hired the guy who did the production design was the guy who did the production design for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Like he was a big name dude, and they definitely spent some money up front on this series, and then they came to the wigs and they were like, I don't know, Bob's sister cosplays. Grab Bob's sister's wigs out of the back room and throw them on somebody's head. They were just really bad wigs. They were either really bad wigs to begin with, which is probable, or they were applied by somebody who had no idea how wigs were supposed to work, which is also probable. This looks like a good spot to put some weft. Let's put some weft here. Oh, that didn't go as well. There. Let's clip this up again with a different clip. That's better. That's entirely possible. I kind of get the feeling that they blew all their money up front with that show. Like it's just, they had some really good ideas that didn't execute very well. The production designs were great though. Part of the problem too was, and this is why I said somebody who handled them didn't know what they were doing with wigs. Like, they had lace front wigs on all the main cast, but not only, whoop, all that wig fiber is now a tangled mess. Not only did the lace not match the actors, like it was not even in the same color family as it was the Chinese show. Everybody in the show is the same ethnicity, so it's not like they just were pulling potluck. But the they hadn't trimmed any of the lace. So a lace front wig typically, this one's unusual because it's got a shorter lace, but typically a lace front wig will come with a big block of lace that you trim to, you know, go with your hairline or to fit your head. And they hadn't trimmed any of the wig lace. So literally the actors have wigs that have a block of different colored lace coming down and then a hard line of glue, like they had liquid latexed only the edge, that was covered with a different color makeup. So you'd have like the main character has white hair. He's got white hair, a patch of orange wig lace, a hard orange line of latex across his face, and then peach makeup. And like you're looking at this going, did they think that looked okay? Like, who's responsible for this? And can I slap them this far away? And all of the wigs were like that. It was just terrible. Oh gosh, Good Omens. Oh, I will. Honest truth, that wig almost kept me from watching Good Omens. And Good Omens is a great show and I love it. But the opening scene has a bad wig with a bad lace application job. And I got 2 seconds into the show, David Tennant turned his head and I went, what? Because how did a show that good with that kind of budget have that wig in it? Like they didn't even hide his it's the lace is sitting on top of his hair. Like, guys, it's not that hard. Really. Like, if I can see the problem with your lace application while casually watching a show from across the room, I know somebody on set had to be able to see the problem. Most of Good Omens was very good. That wig was not. I really enjoyed the show. Nothing that touches David Tennant if we'd vet. I'm sorry, I beg to differ. That wig was bad. It actually was really distracting. And part of the problem with being, once you are familiar with how things work, like being familiar with how costuming goes together, being familiar with historical fashion, being familiar with how wigs work, the curse is that then you can't unsee that. So if you see a show that has bad wigs, it becomes very distracting. And in the opening scene, which is that great scene, like they're standing on the wall outside Eden and it starts raining and Aziraphale puts his wing up, like all of that. That scene is a great scene, but I didn't notice it the first time I watched it because I was too busy going, but the wig lace. But the wig lace. So it can be very jarring for people who work with that sort of thing. Much the same way that, for people who work with animals, bad animal handling or bad animal training can be really bad in a movie because you're too busy going, but why didn't you just call a trainer instead of watching the film for what it is? There was a particular TV show. It was a major primetime show. It ran for several years. And there was a scene in which two characters are being chased by, like, I know they were being tracked by dogs. I don't remember if it was military dogs or what, but they were being tracked by trained tracking dogs. And the two characters get in a fight because one character had a sandwich. And so they get in a fight, and the guy grabs the sandwich and chucks the sandwich and starts waving his arms around and screaming and blah, 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 blah about, now the dogs are going to smell us because you had a sandwich. And I'm like, dear sir, please Google what raft particles are. Please Google how dogs track, and then do not have your actors get in a fight over a sandwich and throw a sandwich away because you have just released more scent in doing that action than they would have if they had just eaten the sandwich. Like, this is not how dogs track. The sandwich is not what brings the dogs to you. I'm sorry. And I gave up on the show at that point. I was done. Couldn't watch it. Yeah, so you can, if you aren't familiar with how dogs track, go listen to or watch Laura's episode on tracking dogs. Here's a hint: they don't use sandwiches. And it's not like I expect everybody to know these things. If you are a layperson and you don't deal with things like tracking dogs, then you have no obligation to know how particle distribution works or anything like that. Like, that's legit. I don't expect you to know those things. If you are a writer writing what is supposed to be a technically accurate script about a particular topic, I expect you to at least Google it first. Like, really. It comes across as really bad if you don't. It's kind of like if you do your own wallpaper hanging and it messes up, I'm not going to criticize you for that because you're not a wallpaper hanger. Unless I'm paying you to hang my wallpaper, in which case it ought to be straight. Alright, I have added more weft in the back. Can you tell I have opinions? I have opinions. This is the Alena's Opinions show. I'm still mad about that stupid sandwich script. How did that get approved? I know how it got approved, and it's because most people don't actually, like, vet the facts in scripts, but that is one of those things. I talked earlier about sometimes it's hard and you just have to bite your tongue really hard when people hand you a bad script. If I had been on that show, I would have had a very difficult time getting those lines out. I would have been like, but really? Not calculated self-help book. World-renowned dog expert says X about dogs, and it applies to humans too. Uh, uh, I am actually quite glad that the dog whisperer craze has passed for the most part because it means I don't have to punch people anymore. Because there was a period of about 10 years when people would find out I'm a professional trainer and they'd say, "Oh, are you like the dog whisperer?" And I'd get arrested for assault because I'm like, "No, I'm actually not." Like, that's no. But it's just the assumption that there's a guy on TV, so he must be like you. Also, mammals behavior, that's a separate issue. It's kind of like, oh, you're an Olympic swimmer. Are you like Esther Williams? No, that's actually totally different. Except Esther Williams, it would be fabulous if a swimmer were compared to Esther Williams because Esther Williams, but still. Yeah, there's that too. It was just such a ubiquitous thing for so long. Like, literally, I was getting it multiple times a day for years of the, oh, are you like the dog whisperer? Can we call you the dog whisperer? I'm like, no, please don't. Please don't. Like, I went to school for this. I have credentials. I would like to be, regarded as an expert in uh, my own right, as opposed to there's a guy on TV who has a show. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, and has nothing to do with wig styling. Um, Not that most of my rants tonight have had anything to do with wig styling. All right, so I've got that one done. This one's probably okay. What about this back one? Oh, I don't like the way that weft is showing. Oddly, the weft in the back is just kind of hiding under the back hair and is not really showing up at all. Like, it's there at the tips, but it's only there at the tips. So I'm not really sure how to... I wish I could get some of that back in the lace, but I don't know if I can put it in the lace and have it actually work. The problem is the lace doesn't come back far enough to put it in the lace. Maybe I can put a little bit there. Yeah. It was definitely an era. It's an era I am glad is over. All right, I'm going to add one more little bit of weft, and then I'm probably going to call it for the evening because I could use a break from this. But thank you all for hanging out. I'm pleased that people showed up and let me rant about things and or ranted about things on their own in the chat, which is also fun. So I'm taking suggestions for next week. Actually, so I have some options for next week. I have more materials on order for a couple of projects, which should be here by next week. So I need to make the armor that goes on my shoes for Flynn. I need to style Flynn's wig, which is going to be a whole lot of teasing and spiking. Hopefully I can color it during the week, because the only thing less exciting than watching somebody ventilate a wig is watching somebody Sharpie dye a wig. Or in this case, color it with Copic markers is probably what's going to be happening. So maybe if I do that during the week, it'll be ready for styling. I've got some actual sewing to do at some point, but sewing Sewing doesn't make as good a stream though because it's really hard for me to talk over the machine and it's also hard for me to position the camera. So it almost works better if I don't do all of the live cutting and pinning and sewing and stuff on camera just because it's not really workable as a live stream. I mean, I could certainly have the camera on while I'm doing it. I could maybe do it as a supplemental stream, but not on the Tuesdays. Um, but if anybody has any votes for like, do you want to see shoe armor? Do you want to see more wig styling? Do you want to see none of the above? Do you want to see me make more resin stuff because I have more resin stuff to make? Like, if anybody has a vote, please feel free to vote. Because since you people are here, you are probably my main audience for anything I do in the future. Oh, this is right on the edge of the lace, which is stretching oddly and it doesn't want to go through. Shoe armor. Okay, we have a vote for shoe armor. I can do that. The only reason I'm not doing shoe armor this week, because I was actually hoping to have it this week, is my replacement Velcro hasn't arrived. I'm trying to make the shoe armor. I'm recycling a pair of boots that were a different pair of costume boots, and they're vinyl, and the vinyl has disintegrated. So I'm trying to cover them. And I was going to make the shoe armor attach with Velcro so I could just have it cover the vinyl completely. And I discovered I didn't have the right size Velcro. So I ordered some, but it hasn't arrived yet. But I can do the shoe armor next week because the Velcro should be here this week. I hope. I really hope. Packages have not been arriving very frequently, but by next week it ought to be here. I have no vote because this is all new to me and I'm here to learn and occasionally derail to dogs because cannot turn that setting off. Sorry. I totally get that. Like, I did, for as many years of professional training as I did, I tend to soapbox as well. I soapbox about a lot of things, but dogs are one of the soapboxes. So it is definitely hard to switch that setting off, and that's fine. I don't mind. But yay, thanks for hanging out, even if you have no specific thing you were here to learn. It's great to have people hanging out and picking up details and getting ideas. And of course, more people in the cosplay community is always a good thing. We like suckering new people in. I mean, inviting friends to join us. It's frustrating that vaccination is going so slow and pandemic's still happening and stuff for a number of reasons. Obviously, there are a lot of problems with that, but it's frustrating for my stream specifically because I have a friend who she's really stoked about cosplaying a few things with me this year because I told her I would do some costume groups with her. But she's fairly new to all of it. She doesn't really know how to sew, elaborate things. She does simple sewing. She doesn't do big fancy things. And she wants to learn how to sew more things, and she wants to learn how to do props. And she's constantly asking me questions about things that I'm like, that would be a great topic for a stream. We could do that and have a live stream of how to do it. And then I'm like, wait a minute. No, I can't have her in my house because she works in an Amazon warehouse and is exposed to tons of people, and I'm not vaccinated. And I can't get vaccinated until sometime in the middle of summer because of my age. So maybe later in the year we can have more like live how to build things demos with that. But sadly, that can't happen just yet. Because that would be a great supply of topics because she is full of questions. And I am always needing topics. We actually have a really big prop sword to work on together. So we can do that outdoors during the summer, so that'll definitely be coming up in the summer. I'm hoping I can run my cables outside and actually have my live stream running from the garage in my garage workshop. So that would be the best setting. Alright, that weft should be a lot more visible. So let me pull these clips out and let's see what this looks like once I get the black hair down over it. Let's see if this actually worked the way it's intended to. Not really. Slightly. It sort of shows. It'll show more when the wig's moving. Wow, this wig is super thin in back. Ugh. What a terrible cheap wig. Why did we buy this? Oh, because it was cheap. Alright, yeah, so now there's some more red in back. So, if that shows. It's underneath, but that means when the hair moves, it should come through a little bit more down low. And there's 3 pieces of weft back there, so if we need to add more later to thicken the wig up, we can. But in the meantime, at least there's a little bit of color in there. And once I trim all the ends, they'll be even. But yay, stripes. So this whole the wig desperately needs trimmed because it looks like there's just a bunch of fiber sewn to it with no regard for where the fiber started. So all of the fiber is different lengths. So we will definitely want to be doing some trimming before this gets worn for anything real. So yay, more red. I have so much fiber all over my house, all over my room. Oh well, at least it's in here and not like over where I sleep because my bed is back that way. So I'm not likely to track this. I do find cosplay materials in bed sometimes because they get on the floor and then I walk across the floor and then I get in bed and then they stick to my whatever I'm wearing and it's just... And then my dog buries her raw bones under my sheets sometimes. Thanks, Sparkles. The joys of dog ownership. Oh, was I talking about you? Did you just summon at your name? Hi, you want to see people? Come here. Say hi to everyone. Come here. Nope, you're gonna get on your bed. Okay. It's a sort of dog cam. She's kind of visible. It's not as elaborately set up as Laura's dog cam because I'm not normally in this room, but okay. Well, yay, we have a wig. Okay, so I think that is pretty much all I can do for this until I have Laura's head to size it on. So, hooray! I've actually finished most of a wig this evening. And then once we size this on Laura's head, I will trim the ends. I will cut the wig lace in the front so it's actually at the hairline. But I want to make sure I don't need to, depending, because Laura and I both have fairly large heads, and this is probably not a huge wig since it was cheap. And it's not very well constructed. So if I need to add any hair to the front to extend the wig cap size, I may have to do that. So I don't want to trim that lace until I have it on her head. But yay, we have a wig. Yay. Now we just have to make the rest of the costume. So, all right. So next week sounds like it's going to be shoe armor. Yay. So I will be doing that with thermoplastic and some closed cell foam and some Velcro and whatever else, maybe leather. I don't know. We'll see what condition the boots are in. They're in pretty bad shape. But that'll be next Tuesday. So thank you all for coming and hanging out for, oh gosh, is it really 10:30? Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I'd been at this for 2.5 hours. Thank you for staying around for 2.5 hours while I ventilated a wig. And I hope you learned something about wig ventilating, and you probably learned something whether or not you wanted to about dogs. And next week I will be talking about, actual cosplay specific topics and not just ranting about things. So we'll try to stay a little more on track. I'm going to call it here for tonight. I'm going to go get myself a drink and then try to clean up some of the wig fiber mess that's all over the space. And I will see you all next Tuesday. Have a good evening.